Hi, I'm Zaid Nayazi and I'm a musician living in Edinburgh, Scotland. I believe I'm quite an approachable person, but I can also be quite curious. But at the same time, I can be really quiet. I guess it depends. I'd say a very curious, shy person. The same. I'd say the music's the same. It really depends on my mood, but I draw a lot of influence from different jazz players, different soul players, from different pop artists as well. You know, I think when I studied music, a lot of it was jazz theory, and although I'm not a jazz player, for example, I take a lot of influence from that sort of thing. So I think with music it can be the same. I can also be very minimalistic as well at the same time, so it just depends on how I feel. So I'll say two people. I'd say Bill Lieb and Rhys Fulber. They're part of a group called Delirium, and back in the 90s they were also doing frontline assembly and this industrial metal revolution in I think it was in Canada. And when I first heard their music, it was something so different. It was so produced differently to what I'm used to. So I'd say I always look up to them because I'm always looking to at least try something a little bit different. And it was so impactful for my understanding of music. I listen to a mix of things. I know it's very cliche for people to say that. I usually rely on my daily mix on Spotify. So if I can tell you that by heart. So there's folk Americana music, there's metal music, there's synth pop, there's a bit of country music. I don't know how it's crept in, but I'm vibing that at the minute. And then there's some. It's basically called jazz fusion. It's not exactly something I'm a big fan of, but since I've been listening to that, it's been helping a little bit with my guitar playing. So that's like rock and jazz fused together. It's not the most interesting thing, but technically it's very good. To some degree, yes. I think a lot of the folk stuff does in terms of when I try to borrow from that sort of genre for, say, songwriting. And I think a lot of soul and R&B influences come into my work with others. So I think when somebody approaches me with a project, I'd be keen to show them that side of me first. And then there's the very heavy pop influence as well, which I think makes it relatable to most people. I loved a lot of Michael Jackson when I was growing up. Very much into what was in the charts. I can remember there was a bit of Tina Turner as well. But then I think I sort of started to grow out of that sort of thing at 8 years old, and I was able to sort of discover my own music. And my dad got a computer in the house pretty early on, so I was able to then browse. And then I think within 5 years from that point, MySpace had come out. But I'd say the biggest thing I was listening to when I was a teenager was probably Marilyn Manson. That was a shout out to my dad, who absolutely loved that I listened to Marilyn Manson. I would say yes, but not in the sense of playing instruments. I don't know where my passion for playing instruments came from, but I would say it was an influence from them. So I would say they're musical. They're very obsessed with music, especially my dad. When I grew up around the house, it was always sort of like really hi-fi music. All the systems were sort of up to date, and he was getting these mental speakers in. And I'm sure he was overpaying for them as well. But I think that really did influence me. So they're very much music lovers. I think I was 15. I'd say 15 years old. I went to school with somebody he was actually my best friend at the time. And I was sort of very excited telling him, listen, my dad's bought me a guitar. Come check it out. We were listening to a lot of Linkin Park. So we were listening to a lot of that. And then he'd come over, and he'd never played guitar in his life. And he was able to listen to the sounds and very quickly translate that. So when I saw that, I think that also boosted my understanding. So the songwriting came quite early. And I think it was with him where we started doing that. I'd say about 15 years old. Yeah, I was very jealous of this guy's ability to understand. He just heard everything, and it made so much sense to him. And we couldn't tell you what any of the chords we were playing, for the longest time, I'd say, until I actually studied music. I had no idea. We had no idea what we were doing, but yeah, we managed to record a few songs, and I think those were our very early works. And I guess if you listen back now, it makes sense musically in a very pop format. I hate to say this, but it really does depend. A lot of the time I'll find myself obsessing over a sound or an idea. I'll make sure I'll remember that by recording it. I'll try to get a really good take out of it, and then I'll build on that, sort of figuring out, say, what key it's in, for example. And then I'll be able to use my knowledge of theory to build around that, and then I have a song. Sometimes it's a bit more natural and I've done a whole take of a guitar and that's the song, and I'll just add other instruments to it. It's happened both ways. If to be fair, I'd probably say a lot of the time it was me that would sort of start the conversation. I've collaborated with people I've never met, which is a crazy experience. The guy in Florida, I can't exactly remember his name. Jaded Militia was like his musical name. And I'd commented on his SoundCloud saying, listen, I really liked your song. And he was like, well, I like this one you did. If I send you the track, will you do something similar? Done that on my computer, sent it back. We had very similar setups at the time. So I guess a lot of the time it happens on Instagram now, where I'd be able to tell if I have the correct equipment or if they have the correct equipment. And then that's how it started originally. And now it's word of mouth, really. Someone will say, oh, Zaid, you collaborated with a friend of mine. Will you help me out with this? And that's how it tends to go these days. I am collaborating with a producer called Hakwin. He's from Portobello, but he's actually my neighbour here in Albert Street, so it's very handy to have him there. And a very old friend of mine called Kirsten Rennie. I think we realised early, the two of us, we have a very, I'll say, professional relationship where we really understand each other, and she knows exactly what I want to hear, and I know exactly what she wants to hear. And the same more or less goes with Hakwin. He's very not rigid, but he knows exactly what he wants. He knows exactly what he's trying to pull out of me, and the more I spend time with him, the more I realize his habits are now appearing in my music. So I'd say they're long-term collaborators. We are writing music together, as opposed to in the past when I first met him. Here's a guitar idea, here's a vocal idea. So I'd say it's like a mainstay at the minute. A lot of trial and error at the beginning, a lot of experimentation. I eventually had the confidence to apply to study music at college. That went really well. I didn't really notice at the time, and I did definitely take for granted how many talented teachers I had. I think I was just very young and maybe wanted things to move faster, or wanted a certain thing to happen. But once I got over that, I think I was really able to sort of compose myself, take in as much as I can. I then finished with a bachelor with honours. And then when I finished university, I started work full-time and sort of projects outside of music, whilst in the background writing and practicing and really trying to just discover that sound that could be recognizable and attributed back to me. The current process I have of writing music and producing music is something that's quite therapeutic to me. It's something where sort of the sonic world I create, if you will, is somewhere I can go to reflect on my day, my week. It's where I can gather my thoughts. So I've really been able to separate that from sort of any way to make money or make a living out of. But I think ideally, I would love to, more or less a session player, I would love to play with different people. I like live performance. I went through a stage where I didn't, but I would love to as well do some live performance. Basically, I'd say I'm a guitar player or a songwriter that you can hire to either collaborate or write for you. And I think ideally that would be my job. It gives me something to work towards. A lot of the times in life you could feel like you're sort of stuck You might be in the same place and you're not moving, whereas music's always evolving, you know, even from one note to the other. It's something that you always see progression in, and I think that's what really brings me back. And it's the most effective tool for self-communication, I believe. I would say the engagement with people recently. We did with Hackman and with Kirsten Rennie, we did a song called I Think I'm Lost. It was a very basic chord progression that I put together, and I think the only lyric I did have was I think I'm lost. I really didn't know what else I was scribbling. We went and put that together, and in terms of streams and in terms of engagement, it's been the most successful one so far. And it's the amount of random people that have sort of gone out of the way to be in touch, to say, listen, we really like this. Why is there not more? Because there isn't. I think that's the only one really, that and another small EP on Spotify. And then it made its way onto different playlists, either ones we've submitted to or ones we've had requested. So I just think ideally when we're releasing music, because that's the sort of attention we like to get. Definitely just to like a conversation starter with people. You know, I'm obsessed with a record by a musician called Jordan Rakei. I don't think I can be able to pick out a particular song. You know what? Actually, I can. He's got a song called Mind's Eye. I'm very obsessed with that at the minute. I don't think I'd be upset if that was the only thing I could listen to, because that's what it seems like these days. Definitely. I've been fortunate enough to see some friends who have made that, you know, a leap of faith and quit their jobs, and then, you know, it's worked out for most of them, which I'm very grateful for. I don't know if I'm ready in this particular time. I've by accident stumbled across a job which has turned into a career, and it's a job that I'm very passionate about, and one that I don't think I can live without at the minute. You know, when we cross that bridge, I guess I'll be able to have, you know, a better answer for you. But I think eventually that is what I'm working towards. Positive relationships, I think. Positive relationships. Positive creative people. I'm lucky in this room to have so many different things that people have made for me, and I think at the end of the day, those are the things that I really cling on to, is that I have a relationship with these people who, you know, we could only meet for half an hour a week, but that's what I take a lot of energy from that, and it really helps me with my professional life and with music. I think I would be very heavily involved in music. I think I would definitely pursue the session musician career. Whether, maybe not necessarily in the recording studio, I still feel like I have a lot to practice. I need to get a little bit better, but definitely with live performance as well. I would love to be somebody where like you could hire to play with you, to write with you. So I think, yeah, that if I could go there now, I probably would. I'd say Bill Lieb from Delirium. I would love to. He seems like his whole career has been made up of where I want to be. So I'd love to just to sit and watch him work. I was living in Aalyn, which is the town I went to high school in, and I had my acoustic guitar it was my mum's car at the time that she was letting me drive. And I had it in there, and we were sort of near somewhere we used to go. It's called a LAN center. You go and play games, computer games there. And I was waiting for two of my friends who we were going to go and meet up and write music together. So I bring my guitar out and I'm just playing on a bench in this park. And a guy walks past me, and I forget his name. Older man. And he was like, "Oh, I really like your guitar playing." And he gave me a card, and he was a music studio owner. And I'd never been in a recording studio in this point, especially in the town I grew up in the United Arab Emirates. You know, a lot of the focus was on Dubai, a lot of the development was in Dubai, and Aalyn was just a very small town. You know, it's very similar to Edinburgh in the sense that, for example, you can't build past a certain height. You know, it's a very historic place, and not a lot went down there. So very excited, went, and it was the first recording studio experience that I ever had, and it came about me sitting in a park just playing with my guitar, something that I never did. So that's always something that I try and remember, that you could meet somebody, and some cool story could come out of it. Another story I have, maybe if I'd say it's a little bit unfortunate. The Hive nightclub in Edinburgh. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. They used to do gigs there, and I played bass guitar in a band called Two Steps Envy. It was like a progressive metal band. We went up, and I had this 5-string bass. It was the heaviest thing I've ever picked up in my life. One of the bass players from the other band lent me this wireless kit. And again, it was just this chunky thing that we had there. Now, the stage was well built, but there was a very small part of the stage, just a hole in the ground. And halfway through the set, I'm playing, and I sort of notice I've lost my bass response. I'm trying to have a discussion or an argument with the sound engineer he's across the room. And then on the very last hit of the song was the bass guitar hit. Nothing. And this thing had fallen right into the hole, and it disrupted the entire gig because all these different band members were digging around for it, and then just people started leaving, and it was really, really horrible, and it was all my fault. Hi, I'm Zaid Nayazi, and I'm going to play you some of my favorite guitar sounds.